Okay. Anyway, as mentioned, my name is Holly Favino. I'm the program director for the Philadelphia Summer Medical Institute. And again, introducing Laura. This is Dr. Laura Layer. She is our medical director for the program. She's also a physician at Esperanza Health Center and the director of medical campus outreach, which is a joint partner to run the program. Actually, MCO is the engine behind the SMI, as we call it. And Esperanza is our program partner. And we have been partnering with them for over 30. This program has run for, I believe this will be the 33rd year of SMI. So it's a program with a lot of legacy behind it. And I'll tell you a little more about that in a few minutes. Anyway, at core, the Philadelphia Summer Medical Institute is a very hands-on, intensive program for Christian healthcare students. We bring about 15 to 20 students into North Philadelphia every year. We are doing door-to-door health screens. We are sharing health education. We are talking to people about blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes. We often have Esperanza's in-house HIV team going around with us, providing in-home HIV tests. We are sharing resources in the community with students are encountering all sorts of issues as they talk with people. As you can imagine, sometimes people need mental health resources or pregnancy resources or food insecurity resources. So students are carrying information about that as well. And we are learning to share the gospel through conversation and prayer with people we meet. So we do give the students evangelism training along with their medical training and the orientation. And we partner with local churches, and the local churches actually agree to do follow-up on anyone who's interested. That includes going to a Bible study, attending a church service, or just resources or support that the church can provide. So as I explain to students when I go out and speak in the community, there are two groups that we have objectives for. Obviously for the people in the community, and this is, by the way, North Philadelphia. Anyone from Philadelphia may be familiar with that neighborhood, but if you're not, North Philadelphia is one of the more difficult neighborhoods in Philadelphia. It struggles with certain issues. Usually in the news, you hear a lot more about crime and opioid epidemic, which this neighborhood is kind of the heart of the opioid epidemic, not only for Philadelphia, but for a lot of the Eastern Seaboard. So we do encounter issues of substance abuse right on the streets. It's pretty open. It's very graphic. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But we, first of all, would not bring you into the neighborhood if it was dangerous. And we basically are not there to treat or care for the people who are struggling with addiction. We do provide them with resources if needed, but we're there to provide health education in the community to the ordinary folks who live there. And I'll say more about that in a moment too. So as I'm explaining it, there's two groups that I'd say we have objectives for as we participate in SMI. There are two groups. One is clearly the students, clearly the community, because as you can imagine, we're trying to bring them referrals, health education, health information, resources, and connect them to the local church and the gospel when it's appropriate and when people are interested. I think the key, as I mentioned, is teaching students how to appropriately share their faith in the healthcare context. There is nothing more intimate than being allowed into someone's home and being able to have the privilege of sitting with them and hearing their stories, hearing sometimes their very personal health issues, and being given the opportunity to have their baby sit on your lap or smell their food cooking on their stove. It's very different from seeing them in the clinic. If any of you have done shadowing or work in the clinics, even those at Esperanza have told me it's a totally different view when I go in and do a home visit and I see my patients there, because you get a very personal view of their lives. And so that is a privilege, and we'd love to be able to do that. And you learn a lot more about people in the neighborhood, about urban healthcare. And I'll say more about that as I talk to you about the students. But we really want to provide referrals to people, and a lot of people don't even know that Esperanza is there. It's Esperanza Health Center is a fully Christian health center, our program partner. It's been in the community almost as long as our program has run, a little bit longer. And it has 3 locations, over 200 staff. It is fully Christian. On their website, I encourage you to go onto it. Maybe Laura, if you could type Esperanza's website onto the chat so that people can see the link there if needed. But they they're specifically there. It's a FQHC, a federally qualified health center, and they're there to provide care for people who are underinsured or uninsured. And so it's great to be able to explain to people in the community that if they don't have a primary care provider, they've been worried about the cost, or that they their citizenship status or et cetera, or something may be compromised, that they can actually go there and get care. So that's a wonderful resource to have. So for the people in the community, you can see we have a very clear, intentional objectives for them. And I have been able to follow up with the churches and talk about, how the follow-up calls went with them. I'm really glad to see that there are people who have really gotten connected to churches, people who have gotten baptized in churches, become members because of that initial contact with the students. Or even one year there was a woman who was an invalid, as she was an elderly woman, and the church was able to connect home visits to her to provide some of her resources and needs because she didn't have a lot of family to care for her. So that was really a wonderful thing. For the students, though, we also have objectives. That's the other group that I would say we have goals for in the program, because while we may be in a home or on a porch talking with someone for 15 minutes, doing screens for a half an hour or an hour, which is, if you know anything about healthcare, that's a long time to be able to spend with someone, and we have that privilege during the program. But for the students, we have them for all 3 weeks, and the program is really geared to pour into the students and in very specific ways. And first and foremost, I'll mention, we would like to really teach the students about the realities of urban healthcare. That is because they learn so much when they're walking in the community, and as I mentioned to you, getting to see up close what the realities are. For example, why you can't just give someone a prescription and say, follow this, get your medications, and you should be fine. This whole issue will be taken care of. Because sometimes the people that they meet may be more concerned about being able to pay their bills that month. They may have more going on in the home that just takes their attention and time. They may not have a telephone. They may not have transportation to get to the appointment. And so the students are learning firsthand about this. And as one student said to me last summer, one of the things I realized about SMI is we talk about social determinants of health in school, but I'm seeing it, and it's becoming real to me here during the program, and I can appreciate what people are going through, and it has helped me think about healthcare in new ways and understand how these abstract things are very important. And so that is really helpful to for the students, and also just helping see the diversity of the communities. As I mentioned, North Philadelphia is often in the news for bad things happening. But if you get to know the community, I think I really enjoy seeing the students see the beauty and the diversity of the community that's there. And we do also participate in some community trainings. We have some of the community leaders. We get to speak to the students and get to know a little bit, some years about Puerto Rican culture, about what it's like being an outsider community, growing up in the community, different perspectives that they can see. And the students get to see that the people that they meet on the streets are a lot of times just people who are just working, living there, families, grandparents, children, and they get to know them in a personal way. Like, here's the man who always waves to us as we come by in the street. Here's the woman who gave us water bottles. Here's the family who prayed for us. And you really get to appreciate the people of the community. And it's a great thing, and to get some of your unintended, maybe preconceptions are kind of upended as you get to know them in a more personal way. So that's a beautiful, beautiful part of the program. So aside from learning about the realities of urban healthcare, the students are also learning to practice their faith through conversation and prayer. So as I tell people, as I speak out in groups, we don't come from a perspective of, you have to have quotas, or we have a certain method that you have to use. It's more from a starting place of when you yourself realize the amazing and humbling work that the Holy Spirit has done in your life, and how Christ has saved you out of love and joy, gratitude, and humility. You have this welling desire to go and speak to other people about what Christ has done. And sometimes that does, cause some nervousness for people. Some people say, I've not been good at that. I never practiced that before. But when you go out in the community and you're learning to practice it on a daily basis, and I mentioned we do give you evangelism training, so we're not giving you like just sending you out there cold. We give you some perspective in the training on why, both going through the biblical perspective of why Christ calls us to speak about his name. We give you how to appropriately segue from a healthcare conversation to a spiritual conversation. And it is appropriate to do this when you do it in the right way, something that's not always taught in medical school or nursing school. And it's also important to just have an opportunity to practice it. And I often hear this during the program that students say, I really wish this program continued for another week or two, because I was really getting confident to share my faith and really learning how to do this. So that's just a pleasure. So the students get that opportunity to practice on a daily basis, multiple times. And the third thing that I really like to see is that, probably this is when I said first and foremost, I didn't mean foremost, actually. The most important thing that we do see the students really gain from the program is learning and encouragement to center their identities in Christ. And that's so important, because during your years of study, it's very common, as we hear from healthcare students who have participated over the years, that it's easy to set your spiritual life, put God kind of on the back burner, because you're so busy studying, spending time in the library or in your room, isolated sometimes, or in a competitive environment. And it's easy to see yourself as a future healthcare professional who happens to be a Christian, rather than a Christian who happens to be a future healthcare professional. So it's really great to have some time during SMI for students to really focus on what it means to be a Christian in healthcare. And how do you learn to have faith in God? How do you deal with issues of suffering that you see in the community? And that we do spend quite a bit of time talking about that, because students invariably do encounter some very hard issues as they go out in the streets, and are learning about, learning about the neighborhoods, learning to deal with things that you have no idea how to control or how to give answers to. We talk about when things are out of control. I think the students often somebody finds themselves in a situation where they don't have the answers. And we talk about that at SMI, like, what do you do when you're in that situation? Because at this time in your life, you're being taught to have the answers, right? You're being taught to be prepared for that test, be prepared to know these symptoms, being prepared to know how to respond to this patient in that circumstance. But sometimes the students will be grappling, like, I'm out in the streets and I'm seeing this and this and that, and all I can do is pray for them. That doesn't feel like enough. Like, what do I do? And it's important to be able to know, what does it mean to have faith in God? What does it mean to know doing your very best, obviously, in every situation, but also knowing that sometimes you do have to trust that God will care for this person, or God will care for this situation. And how do you go about doing that? So it's really special, because I do feel like God calls every person to SMI for an intentional purpose. And that over the years of being part of this program and talking with the students and reading their evaluations and doing follow-up with the students, and even getting to do follow-up with them years after they've participated, because I keep in touch with a number of students from as early as 2012 when I first started. Just great to hear about how SMI was a pivotal place where God taught them something really important. There was a real purpose for why he had them there, whether it was teaching them that they needed more community, giving them a new vision for their career and why they're going into healthcare, or what they're going to do there. Or my favorite is, I hear this quite a bit, is that the SMI was a place where they really came to renew their relationship with Christ. And that was really special because we clearly want SMI to be a point where they can strengthen their faith and know who they are. And we do this helping them center their identity in Christ through different ways, not only just daily devotions, having a daily debriefing after each day's work, talking about who we saw, what we encountered, how we responded to each situation. What sometimes these are just medical questions, but just a place where we can hear the stories of everybody after their day's work. We do the evangelism training. We have twice weekly small groups, and not only is that a time for the students to kind of get into the word a little bit, but it's a time for them to pray for one another. Sometimes use it as an extended debrief where they can just spend time sharing their what they saw. Sometimes someone had a really hard issue they encountered and they just need to talk about it with people for a little longer. Sometimes students are going through personal stuff in their own lives, and I've just been like so grateful that they sat and had like their small group sit and pray for them. We also do what we call return training at the end of the program, where you're getting all these things that you learned about during SMI and can kind of process them and start that. And we have a lot of mentoring that goes on in informal discipleship through the faculty who accompany us during SMI. And each year we have approximately 40 to 50 Christian healthcare professionals. These are people from all backgrounds, many different fields, who have just give up their day, their few days a week, sometimes their whole week of vacation, so that they can work alongside the students. And they are not doing the work. They're there to accompany the students, walk alongside them, sometimes help with a technical medical issue, but mainly just to get to know the students and be someone a few steps ahead of them in life, who can talk about how they got into their field of practice, how they stay involved in their church, how they encounter issues as a Christian in a secular environment, or how they manage life work balance, having families while they're being a busy healthcare professional. So these are great opportunities, and some of these relationships have stayed well after SMI, and it's really privileged. The students really usually love that. And we are working with interpreters. This is Hispanic North Philadelphia, so we do not have all households speaking Spanish, but when we encounter them, we have people in the community, usually from the churches or from Esperanza, who are working with each team. Usually each team has an interpreter every day, and they go out in the community, and the students get to know them, connect with them. The students, by the way, I should say, we are partnering with the local churches. The students are attending those churches on Sundays as a home church, and each student has a team, church team, and they basically work in the neighborhoods around those churches, so they can refer people to the local church that's close by to them. Students get to attend there, get to know some of the people on Sundays, get to sometimes the interpreters who are working from the churches, and it's really great because the students are not only living in the community. We live at a church, by the way, that has promised us housing space for guys and women. We kind of use that as our home base. So the students are living in the community, getting to know the people on the streets, shadowing one day at Esperanza Health Center, getting to see an effective model of primary health care, getting to see people in the clinic, getting to see people in the churches, and you get a really holistic picture of the neighborhood for the 3 short weeks that you're there. I've said a lot, and I have a few more things to say. But I want to let Katie say a few words about her experience at SMI. So thank you, Katie, for making yourself available tonight. So if you could just share a little bit about what you learned at SMI, what was of value to you. If you want to share an anecdote or something like that, feel free, but go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. I currently am going to Wheaton College, and I'm pre-physician assistant as of right now. And I did SMI this past summer, which was a great experience. I highly recommend it. I would do it every summer if I could. Maybe I will. But one thing that I really took away was how important community is, not just like going out and doing outreach, but also just with everyone that I got to work alongside. A lot of them poured into me a lot as I was walking, just with Christ, just helping me grow a lot. And that was super important. And just seeing like how they can pour into other people. How can I do that in my everyday life? Is super important because I really want to pour into relationships, just being a Christian. And it was just great, like the power of prayer, especially. I think there were a few days, either it was rainy or just didn't have a good day, where we knocked on maybe 20 or 30 doors, and it just wasn't the best day. And just the power of prayer, being able to just stop and pray um through that. Lord, like, please show me your light. I just want to pray over this neighborhood, even if they didn't pick up. Like, um just super important. And it's great, like, seeing how people were able to receive, just sharing the gospel. It was amazing. That was my first time going out and just sharing, like, the Lord with people I didn't know. I was super nervous and it was uncomfortable for me, but it was great. And it was an amazing experience sharing um just the Lord, and handing out Bibles and pamphlets, and some of them ended up coming to church with us, which was great, and super encouraging, and just them opening their doors to us and just being so welcoming and just receiving our prayer and just our love. And just um, I feel like a lot of people, when I told people I was coming to work in North Philly, were um, not always the nicest about it. They're like, "Oh no, like, I hope you're safe." But everyone sees the brokenness, but just the good that you see in those people and the community that they have in their neighborhood and with their family is just super encouraging, because they do have the Lord with them. And I feel like a lot of people don't recognize that enough. And I think that's super important. Um, and I think something that I really took away from this was just how much compassion that the Lord has given me, that I can share with other people. Um, Even through working with my group and the church, and with Dr. Layer and Mrs. Favino, I just feel like it is super important, like, having compassion in healthcare. What does it mean? Because spiritual health is just as important as physical and mental health. And how can we share that with patients openly and comfortably, and just share the love of Christ? I think can often be neglected, and it was amazing to see that work in the communities that we were able to do, and also shadowing at Esperanza, and just hopefully being able to carry that with me on my healthcare journey, and being able to share that with other people who are also going into the field, who are grappling with, how do I openly and comfortably share this? It's just super important. And I would really encourage that, because I personally didn't know how to do that, and I want to be able to do that. That's why I feel called going into healthcare. Um, and so those are just a few things that I took away. I don't know if there's anything else you want me to speak on, Holly, but
Great. Well, yeah, feel free to answer any questions as we after maybe the end of the session if you have time. But thank you, Katie. I really appreciate that. I have a few details to add. The application is open right now. We do have a $1,600 cost of participation, and I just want to encourage you about that. We do not expect students to pay that out of their own pocket. Most students support raise to get that. And I would say that we realize that your students, that it would be better and easier in some respects if you have the ability to work for the summer rather than giving up 3 weeks where you have to, support raise for something. But I do want to say, if you feel that God calls you to SMI, I do feel like he provides the way to do that. And I don't say that glibly or lightly. We, as being part of this program for the past, over a dozen years, I have to say that I have seen God provide for every student and every year, and that's hard to, understand unless I explain to you all these stories of how God does that. We don't have a huge, backup fund that we use to provide for all the gaps for every student, but God does provide. And I usually work with the students every year. So we provide you with a packet on how to support raise. Most students who do SMI have never done that before, surprisingly. But that's okay, because we tell you how to do it. We provide you with a template letter, all the information you need, and then I track every student every week and helping them reach their goal. And pretty amazing how God has worked in each student's life. I kind of feel like this is the first step of faith that students take to participate in the program. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to contact me and I can talk to you more about that. But we do feel like if God is calling you to do SMI, please don't let that be the one thing that would hold you back, because I do feel like that can be taken care of, and God will provide the answer for your financial needs for that. Sometimes students are worried about doing research. Our medical students in particular are often given more responsibilities from their school or requirements they have to meet. We sometimes are able to make a SMI research project for the students. We do some loose research in the program, calling up people who are what we call new positives or urgent highs, and finding out if they followed up on our recommendation that they see their provider for either like a hypertension or diabetes risk. But students have made a research project of SMI out of food insecurity issues. Sometimes it's answering a question, but we could help you potentially with that if that's a need. Sometimes students have just been able to fit in research around SMI as well. So that's something that it's particularly for the medical students that we just want you to know. I think those are the key details. So we're coming at 7:28 right now. A few things I want to point out for those of you who have to leave is you can find out more info, obviously, at our website. Has a lot of info there, and there's a student FAQ page where I really hope that everyone goes to see a student-made video. You can see from the student's perspective about what SMI looks like, feels like, and we have like a banquet at the end of every year's program where we invite everyone who participated in SMI to come, whether that's the faculty, our cooks. We have volunteers who bring us meals every night, amazing meals, I should say, and our neighborhood churches and the students. Actually, it was Katie, you were the one who made the video last year, is that right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, actually, that's not Katie's video, but we're posting hers as well. We just haven't gotten that one up there, but Katie did an awesome one. But this is 2022, so you can kind of see the student perspective of what SMI looks like. And they may sometimes have more pictures of them having fun, only because that's easier to shoot than getting permission from the patients that we see. But the majority of the work is with like 6 hours a day during the program is spent in going on the streets with the patients. So that's quite a bit of the work done. So does anyone have any questions for me while we're here? Please go ahead and ask me, because the opportunity for you guys to find out more about the program, and I can answer you directly. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, I wanted to ask about commute. So is there a bus or
No.
cargo?
Everybody lives together
Mhm.
and they live in the neighborhood. And there may be a short commute to, if you're assigned to do screens in a neighborhood that's 10 blocks away, 12 blocks away. But there's usually enough folks have cars that team can pile in a car and go. But
Mhm.
you're living, working. We
Right
like
there.
you to, yeah, we tell you to pretend that you got on a plane to an island and it landed in North Philly, and that's where you are for
Mhm.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-contained
Mhm.
in a little bubble.
A lot of our students in the neighborhoods actually walk to their working locations for the day. That's how close the neighborhood is. And we will be, every year we partner with the church that we live in, and we never do the same neighborhoods every year. So there's enough dense neighborhood around us that we're able to walk to different sectors of the neighborhood every year. We do try to partner with a few different churches. Hello, Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, can I just regard to density? So
Mhm.
when I first started work at Esperanza, I did a project through them where we did home visits. Guess how many homes are in 2 blocks of North Philly? Katie, you're not allowed to guess. Guess how many homes are in 2 blocks, considering both sides of the street of North Philly? Anybody have a guess? No? 150. So that's how dense it is. So it's very easy to do different neighborhoods every year because there's just so many people that live there.
Yeah, if we, just to give you an idea of numbers, if you'll see that on the video, but if we have over 20 students, we usually talk to about 700 individuals that we are actually screening. If we have maybe like 15 students, like last summer, with maybe like 500. So we knock on about 2,000 to 3,000 doors. speak with actually 500 to 700 individuals and screens 500 to 700. And when we do those screens, that's 500 to 700 individuals that are actually getting multiple screens and being talked to, talked with, being prayed with. So there's a lot that's happening. I will say that SMI, sometimes we call it the hardest summer you'll ever love, but love that let the students do, because it's you are waking up in the morning, getting into your group, going out in the streets. You may have devotions that morning or a speaker who we have something, by the way, I didn't mention this, called Biblical Foundations, because we really think it's important to understand why we do what we do. So we have usually a local pastor come in and go through this is twice a week for 1 hour throughout SMI, the basic foundations of the Christian faith, which means creation, the fall, redemption, contextual theology, and just helping all the students kind of be in the same place, because we're all Christians, but we come from different denominations, different Christian backgrounds. Some of our students are new believers. Some of them have grown up in Christian homes, and helping us all understand, why we believe what we believe and how it applies to what we're doing in North Philadelphia or our career, further on in life, is really important. So that's a really great time to kind of prepare you too for your week as you go out and you start thinking about, what am I doing as I'm talking to this person? What is this conversation that we're having? What's the bigger picture of what God is doing here in my life, in their life? And then you may have a speaker, in the evening over dinner, and then the small group may meet the next night, and you may be praying for someone, deep into the night, and your mind is kind of blown by all these things that you're seeing and hearing, experiencing the conversation. It's a very, very rich, intense time for spiritual growth, for, career experience and learning in general. I will say that I have had many people talk to me about SMI, and they'll tell me that it was a life-changing experience. And I would hear that over and over, to the point, at first I just thought it was, hyperbole, but then you keep hearing people say it. And then people were sharing with me why and what way that it was powerful, and that it was, pivotal for them in their relationship with God or in their career. I've had people from the 1990s come back and tell me this was a program that helped me really change the direction of what I was doing with my career and the community that I was serving. And I really just so passionate about this little program, because I realize that God has used it in mighty ways in many people's lives over many years. And it's like this little gem that we have here in Philadelphia. Sometimes it's hard to get the word out, but it's continued on for so long. And we've had an opportunity now. We've had 5 years, the past 5 years, where we've had children of past participants apply. And we don't even keep track of the people who did it in the 1990s, but students would tell us usually that their parents said, oh, if you're going into healthcare, you've got to do SMI, because it's really powerful. So that's just, you have to experience it for yourself, but that's just something I just love to share with people, because it's been really neat to see what God does during these 3 short weeks. Okay, any other questions? Does anyone have anything else to share? I'll ask Laura. Wait, so do you have something, this gentleman here with the blue plaid shirt?
Yeah, sorry, I did have a quick question about the application timeline. I know there's a deadline of February 15th that's set on the website, but it also says if it's past the deadline, it would still be considered. So I wasn't sure, since I don't have a firm summer plans yet.
Yes, so we do have 2 deadlines, only because some students want to get their summer squared away quickly. They're pretty sure they want to do SMI. And especially if you're an undergraduate, we encourage you to apply. We would like to have everyone come do SMI, but we're limited by our housing. We do give preference to graduate students, only because med students typically only have 1 summer available when they can do it. We do have a few students every year get credit as a rotation, so we are that serious about our work, and we do have supervision by Esperanza. It's usually family medicine rotation or public health. But we can only offer that to a limited number of students. So it's usually first year medical or dental students, nursing students, undergraduates who are pre-PA or pre-med, nursing students often getting their degree in undergraduate anyway. But we give preference to graduate students, so we encourage undergrads, if you're serious about doing it, it's probably better to get a commitment earlier, because when the graduate students start rolling in, we may have to give preference to them if your application comes up, and then we put anyone else on a wait list. Every year is different. We don't have a wait list every year. We didn't last year. We did the year before. It's all determined by, we only have about housing for about 20 students, and it depends upon the ratio of men and women. So we tend to get more women applying than guys. So it's usually better to have, guys are more likely to get in easily, but I can't guarantee anything from year to year. But if I will say this to anyone here, if you're interested in the early application deadline, then it's okay to me if you don't get, I prefer if your recommendations get in by the 15th. If they don't, I usually do give people some grace, because sometimes that's a little bit out of your control. You know, whether your professional recommender had time or availability to write that recommendation. I generally think that it's good to give them at least 2 weeks notification to get that in. So if you're thinking about applying now and you give that someone the heads up, could you write a letter of recommendation? They just come to my email, and that's fine. But if they didn't get it into me by February 15th, it's not like, well, no, you're out. Just let me know. Like, I would communicate with you and say it hasn't come in yet, but if you could just notify them, if they could get it in the next week or so, that's fine. So if you still have interest in applying early, that's fine. If you are, sometimes people are like, well, I had one other opportunity, but I won't know about that until March or mid-March. Well, then that's fine. Go ahead and apply in the second, on the regular deadline in March. So if that
Right,
answers your
yeah.
question.
Right,
Yes.
just so to,
Yes,
yeah,
thank
be clear, the early deadline is February 15th, the later deadline, the regular
Mhm.
deadline is March 15th, right, Holly?
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Sure, sure. Any other questions?
I have a question for one of our participants, if he's willing. Speaking of people who did it in 1990s, is Morgan Wills really Morgan Wills? Is that Morgan Wills? Morgan, God bless you, buddy. Hi.
Greetings.
When did you,
Thanks for letting me listen in late.
when did you do SMI?
93, 94, 95, and 96. And then we created our own SMIs for the Vanderbilt campus for many years.
That's great. I've
So,
never met you.
I
Nice to
can
meet you.
testify to everything she said. Nothing is made up. So sign
Cool.
up, go for it.
And if you want to introduce yourself to the pre-meds who may be on the call, who may be interested in what you're doing now.
Sure. I'm helping start a new medical school at Belmont University in Nashville, which is a Christ-centered institution and is committed to raising up the next generation of whole person healthcare providers. And we've just opened for applications for the first inaugural class this summer. So if you haven't heard about it yet, or you're applying in a year or two, keep us in mind and come check out the Frist College of Medicine.
Awesome. Congratulations on that work. That's pretty great.
Which is why I'm listening in. So I'm trying to anticipate potential elective opportunities for our students and how this might fit into the schedule. So not for this summer, but for the year ahead. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Good. If any other questions before we conclude? I'm happy to answer them.
I'm so sorry. I have one more quick
No,
question.
don't be sorry. That's what we're here for.
Thank you so
Go
much.
ahead. And what's your name, by the way?
Shady Mina. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the program dates is the 15th of June till July 6th, and we have to stay
Yes.
for the entire time. Like if another summer opportunity overlaps by a couple days, that wouldn't really work out, correct?
We try to have everyone participate in the entirety of the program because it really builds upon itself. And it's important every week we see the progression, and the lessons we're trying to impart and are progressive, not just like, oh, you do SMI for a week and then can leave. And we really believe in the importance of the community that we have built there. the relationships there and what you're learning are integrally entwined. But we do try to be flexible if someone has something like a wedding or a class or sometimes a job that, you know, may conflict. We have had some of our med students, dates are getting a little crazy now because schools are starting in the summer. So we've had some of our students that are starting their second year. Actually, their second year started the last week of SMI. So we've excused them at points for, you know, to attend class or be sitting in a Zoom meeting. Sometimes there's a little flexibility about that. We've had students who are studying for an exam or a class they had to make up. So, I mean, I would say in that circumstance, just talk to me about your individual circumstance and I'd be happy to like let you know what would work or what would work. We try to be flexible. We don't want to make ourselves exclusive and limiting for people. We really will try to make it possible for everyone. So I'm happy to talk with you about that if need be. You can just the smiphilly@gmail.com. That's my email and I'm happy to, you can reach out to me there and I'm happy to reach you by phone too, if that's easier. So just let me know.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Good. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, if you think of some, feel free to contact me or Dr. Laura Lair would be happy to speak to you, I think, as well. She tends to handle the people who are interested in doing it as a rotation. Specifically, I know we have at least one, maybe two students who are thinking about that.
Right, yeah, rising fourth years can do it for a medical school rotation usually too, which can be helpful. Yeah. Family medicine elective or maybe a community health elective if your school has a community health department or a community health track.
Yeah. And please feel free to tell all your friends about it. Right now, especially early in the program, we're pretty wide open. So I think we only have a few applications in. They start to come in more during February, and then between February and March is when we get the most. So we're happy to, you know, have you know, as many people come apply as possible so that we can make sure that we have a full program. We may have some flexibility with numbers if we get very full. So we, you know, again, we try to have more people participate. It just gets harder as spring comes on. We usually have a few people try to join in April. And that's harder because Esperanza has a list of hoops you have to jump through to become a volunteer, which you have to do to be part of the program. So, you know, just making sure that clearances are gotten and everybody's immunizations, records, etc., have been turned in takes sometimes a little bit of a while. So, you know, please let people know that if they're interested to apply sooner. Again, applying doesn't mean you're committing. Applying is just applying and finding out if you got in and, you know, if you're able to fit within the date. So yeah, I just encourage people to do that earlier rather than later. Okay, well, it's been a pleasure to have all of you sitting in tonight, and please feel free to get the word out or to ask me questions or to ask Dr. Laura Lair or speak to if you want to speak to a student or two about their experience in their particular field. Again, we have all healthcare students, so that's everything from dental, nursing, medical, PT, OT, physician assistant. What am I missing, Laura?
We've had behavioral health on occasion. We've had medical social work on occasion.
Right.
Pharmacy.
Yes, that's right. Pharmacy students.
Pharmacy.
So yeah, anyway, just we appreciate you being here and listening to us tonight. I really hope you guys all apply. Thank you so much for your time. Podiatry. Yes, that's right. Podiatry. Yeah, we actually do. All of our students do
the neuropathy
screens if someone seems to indicate that they are predisposed to diabetes. So that's been helpful for our podiatry students as well. All right, well, thank you. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time tonight to come listen. But have a good evening, and I hope to hear from all of you if you get the chance. Thank you.